Max Miller, what are you up to? Stop making interesting videos about Rome. Oh my gosh. You see, I had dinner, it doesn't matter. When you deal with Max Miller, you can have dinner like 15 minutes before watching his videos and it doesn't matter. So what have you got? Ancient Roman dining. How to host an ancient Roman dinner. That sounds fun. 14 hours ago, man. That's new.
So you want to host an ancient Roman banquet. Of course you do.
Of course
well, there's
you do.
lots to know if you want to be a good host. But first and foremost is you need a centerpiece dish. Something to really wow your guests. Like this ancient Roman recipe for roast flamingo.
No way. Roast flamingo. I thought it was chicken. Roast flamingo. What?
So thank you to Hungry Root for sponsoring this video as we learn how to host an ancient Roman banquet. This time on Tasting History.
Okay, there's no way he actually found the flamingo and cooked it in his oven. There's no way. That's gotta be chicken. Nah, it's gotta be chicken. Or turkey. There's no way he's gonna say it now. Check this out.
Now, whether you're planning on hosting a raging bacchanal with hundreds of guests or just having a small little dinner for a few friends, it is your obligation as host to provide some exquisite cuisine. And for the most exquisite cuisine in the ancient Roman Empire, we turn to Apicius, the great Roman gourmand of the 1st century.
You know, when it comes to Apicius, a friend of mine, Salvo, we did a collaboration together like 6 years ago, and we specifically used 2 of his recipes. So I'm a little familiar with the guy. Usually I'm not, because I'm not that much into recipes, but Apicius, yes.
The elder wrote that Apicius, that very deepest whirlpool of all our epicures, has informed us that the tongue of the pink flamingo is of the most exquisite flavor. Now, finding flamingo tongue turned out to be not so easy, nor was finding a flamingo in general. I'm no longer welcome at the LA Zoo. But I was able to find a recipe for flamingo from ancient Rome from Dere Coquinaria, often called Apicius, in honor of that famous gourmand. And it says, for flamingo, pluck the flamingo, wash, tie, and put it in a pot. Add water, salt, dill, and a little vinegar. Halfway through cooking, add a bundle of leek and cilantro and cook. When it is nearly done, add defrutum to give it color. Pound in a mortar pepper, cumin, coriander, silphium, mint, rue. Moisten with vinegar, add dates, pour over some of the drippings.
So basically it's for someone who is already quite wealthy, really, for the kind of stuff that he mentioned in there.
Put it in the pot, thicken with starch, pour the sauce over the bird, and serve. The same recipe can be used for parrot. So should you not be able to find a flamingo, a parrot will do just fine.
Great.
And barring that, I suppose you could use a goose or a duck, which is what I'm going to use.
So, okay, so I kind of half guessed it. I thought it was going to be chicken or turkey. We got a duck. I'd say it's not as nice as a flamingo, but we'll accept the duck. You know, I have had duck a couple of times. The way I like it the most is the Beijing Kaoya, like Peking, Beijing, whatever you call it in English. I don't know. I know it in Chinese. I don't know it in English. Beijing duck.
So for this recipe, what you'll need is 1 duck or goose, 2 tablespoons of salt, a small bunch of dill, a 1/4 cup or 60 milliliters of white wine vinegar, 2 leeks, a small bunch of cilantro, 3 tablespoons defrutum. This is a sweet and delicious syrup of reduced grape must, and it can still be found today under the name of sapa or saba, but it is kind of hard to find, so you can use some balsamic glaze in a pinch. Then 2 teaspoons of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of cumin, 2 teaspoons of coriander seed, and a half teaspoon of asafoetida.
Asafoetida, that's gonna get intense in a little bit. That one smells. When it comes to, what did he just mention? Cumin?
Spoon of cumin, 2 teaspoons of coriander seed. And
is it just me, but coriander seed, when it gets in your mouth and you crack it with your teeth, it's horrible. I hate it. Is it just me? This is a memory from years ago because my mum used to enjoy occasionally putting in stuff like that.
A half teaspoon of asafoetida. Sometimes known as hing, you can find this in many Indian grocery stores, and I'll put a link to where you can get it online. It is very, very pungent. The aroma is until you cook it, and then it is like a wonderful garlicky, oniony flavor. And it is what the Romans used after they ate through their entire supply of silphium. Though there have been articles written recently that it might have been found in Turkey and I think in Greece. I've read the articles. It seems that it's probably a relative and nobody's really sure, but hopefully I get to try it one day regardless.
I wonder how ancient we're talking when it comes to these sort of herbs and plants and odori, like we call them in Italian. If it was used in Greece, of course, whatever, but if it was used in Turkey as well, I wonder if someone like the Hittites were using it as well. Been interesting. Man, this guy is great.
Then 10 to 12 leaves of mint, 1 tablespoon of rue leaves. The Romans loved rue. It is a little bitter. You can buy it dried or grow it fresh, but it is an abortifacient, so if you are pregnant, don't eat the rue. Also, if you just want to leave it out, that's fine too. Then 2 more teaspoons of white wine vinegar, 1 cup of finely chopped dates, and some wheat starch if you find it necessary to thicken your sauce, which I actually did not. Now that is a lot of ingredients, rather complicated recipe, which makes me grateful for today's sponsor, Hungry Root. So the first thing to know about this recipe, as is the case with many in Diretto Culinaria, is it is incomplete. It's really, you can't follow it step by step the way that it's written. You need to know that this duck, or flamingo, is probably parboiled and then finished off in an oven. And it'll make a lot more sense trying to recreate the recipe if we do that. So start by filling a pot with water and then add the salt, white vinegar, and a bunch of dill. And once the pot is boiling, then set the duck in and parboil for 15 minutes. Then take it off the heat and carefully transfer the duck to a baking dish, breast side up.
It always amazes me to think how ancient people came up with stuff. Like it's obviously a trial and error and then accumulated experience and knowledge from generation to generation, passed down, written down and all that. But it still fascinates me that someone had an idea and is like, hey, what happens if I do this? And with some of the stuff that they figured out, I'm like, how did you even have the courage to try that? But some did. I mean, think about it. Even the early hunter-gatherers had to really learn which mushrooms you can eat, which fruits you can eat. And this is all before internet, before medicine, before biology, before machines, everything. It's like passed down generationally. But then again, on the other hand, we have access to a lot of information on the go, but we don't learn this stuff, which means when we need it, sure, we can find it. But if we are in a situation where we would need it and we don't know it and we don't have access to the internet, we die. A hunter-gatherer who had generational knowledge that he learned and they learned throughout their life, what plants to eat, what foods to eat, how to cook them and all that kind of stuff, and how to build traps and how to hunt, prey. Oh yeah, you put me and a hunter-gatherer in a forest, if you can travel in time and get one of those. Yeah, I know how to use a computer, but I don't know how to build one. Likewise, I know how to Google stuff, but there is a lot of stuff that I don't know, that ancient people would have absolutely known.
Then chop up the whites of your leeks and stuff the cilantro and the chopped leek inside of the bird. You won't be eating these, they're just there for flavor. Okay. Once it's stuffed, you can truss up the back legs of the bird and then slice the breast in a crosshatch pattern and poke holes into any of the fatty parts of the duck.
So it doesn't
This
explode.
is going to allow the fat to render through and create a crispy skin as it cooks. Then set the duck in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 175 Celsius, and roast it for 30 minutes, and then take it out and baste it with that defrutum. Ooh. This will not only give it a sweetened flavor, but also color it just as the original recipe says. Then return it to the oven and continue to roast it for 30 to 45 minutes or until it gets to an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Then remove the cooked duck from the oven.
Hey, looking good already, looking good, look at that.
And then let it cool a bit while you prepare the sauce. For this, you want to mince the mint and rue as finely as possible, and then in a mortar and pestle, grind up the pepper and the cumin and the coriander, and then in a clean mortar, grind up the chopped dates into a fine paste. Then add in the minced herbs and the spices, and finally the asafetida, and grind everything together until it's well incorporated and as smooth as you can get it. Then add in the white wine vinegar and continue. Then this all goes into a small saucepan along with the drippings from the duck. Then set this over medium heat and let it simmer for about 5 minutes. Then
let it simmer.
The recipe says to thicken it with some starch if you need it, because I found that my duck just didn't give off enough drippings to make it, so I needed to thicken it up very much. Maybe if I had that flamingo or possibly a large parrot, I would have had enough, but my duck...
Yeah, flamingo #1. So here's the thing. When he was talking about morsa and pestle, you know what I was thinking? I don't know if it's just me, so let me know, guys. Let me know. But it's like when you buy, let's say you buy a pesto, right? Then you buy it from the little jar, you open it, take it, put it on the pasta, eat it, and it's good, great. But when you make it, when you actually make it from scratch, whatever it is, it tastes better. Now, it could be because your ingredients are fresher rather than something that has been mass-produced or maybe higher quality. But do you think there is also some form of psychological reason why something that you make yourself ends up tasting better to you? Do you think there is some psychology to it? Because it happens to me every time. I make pasta sauce from scratch like 10 times out of 10, I don't buy it. I just make it. And the few times that I tried actually making the pasta too from scratch, I always end up liking it more.
But even though I couldn't find a flamingo, I think that this dish is going to be a real showstopper, a must-have item for any ancient Roman dinner that you're going to host. Speaking of hosting, just a reminder that I'm going to be hosting a river cruise down the Nile next February 2026.
Really?
So if you want to sign up for that, link is in the description.
Cool.
As for hosting an ancient Roman dinner, here are a few more pointers to make sure your evening goes off without a hitch. So you want to throw an ancient Roman dinner party?
Yes.
Well, first things first. How big do you want this shindig to be? Because there are really two ends of the spectrum. Like the Emperor Claudius gave frequent and grand dinner parties as a rule in spacious places, where 600 guests were often entertained at one time.
Sounds like him. We need some color on those statues and columns.
For most, this was not the norm, not at all. For most, and when I say most, I mean the upper echelon of society, the patrician class, because actually most people couldn't ever dream of having a home big enough to even host a dinner. But for that upper echelon, well, most of them kept their parties pretty small. 9 invited diners was the ideal. But even...
Man, 9 is small? I go nuts when we invite 2 people over for dinner. I'm already like anxious because I have to like double everything because I'm not used to it.
With just 9 invited guests, a lot more people may end up showing up, but we'll get to that later. Now, when you are inviting people, you can use either formal invitations that you send via messenger, or you can keep it a lot more casual, even last minute. You will dine well, Julius Cerialis, at my house. If you have no better plans, come. You will be able to observe the 8th hour. We will bathe together. You know how near Stephanus's baths are to me. First you will be given lettuce, useful for relaxing the stomach, and shoots cut from their parent leeks. Lettuce and leeks, how enticing. Now you'll note that he suggested that they bathe together before dinner, and that was the custom. In the early afternoon, the patrician men of Rome would make their way to the baths where they could bathe and have massages before returning home for dinner. And
sounds like the Romans. It's kind of funny that you're really telling someone, hey, come for dinner, I'll give you lettuce. We're going to start with some lettuce, man. You're going to miss out. Come on, man.
Because of this, it was not uncommon for many of your dining companions to also be your bathing companions, something that the poet Martial complained of. You don't invite anyone to dinner, Cotta, except your bathing companions.
Yeah.
The baths alone supply you with guests. I've been wondering why you never invite me, Cotta. Now I understand.
Cotta, what are you doing? You know what's funny about the name Cotta? Is that it's the word we use in Italian when we talk about a male shirt. We say cotta di maglia. I don't know. I think it comes from the word cotte, probably French. They use it in German as well, I believe. But yeah, cotta di maglia. Cotta is, and then cotta if you just want to... It also means cooked, but I don't think that has no connection with the male. I don't think. But cotta di maglia.
You don't like the sight of my bare butt. A surprising number of Martial's epigrams have to do with being invited to dinner, or him bemoaning the fact that he wasn't invited to dinner. To his friend Gallus, he complained that our dinner invitations are one-sided. When I ask you, you usually come, yet you never ask me. I shouldn't mind, provided you ask nobody else. However, you do.
Man, that's crazy. We got an offended Roman here.
Neither one of us, Gallus, comes out blameless. What do I mean? I'm stupid, and you're shameless. Now, like I said, you can invite however many people you want to your dinner party. I mean, if this is a big banquet, by all means, fill the space. But for most Romans, and frankly, I am of the same mind, a dinner party is for conversation. Yeah. And having too many people can actually stifle the conversation. As Plutarch said, at dinner we should not need messengers as in a camp, or bosuns as in a galley. But we ourselves should immediately converse with one another. The last man should be placed within hearing of the first.
Could you imagine, like, what an experience it would be if, oh my gosh, if I could do that, like, one day, if you could freaking invent time travel, even though it appears to be an impossibility, of course, but let's dream. Could you imagine if you could go and take part in one of these dinners and listen to the spoken classical Latin during a dinner, not during not a poem, not a general, not a politician's statement, not something grandiose, but a dinner. And these guys are like speaking Latin to each other with oh my gosh, what I would give.
Another reason to keep the guest list small is how the Romans ate. And I mean lying down, typically on their side or their stomach.
I think that's only the upper class, though. I don't think regular Romans would do that. Also, because a lot of Romans, they were like working class, they would eat standing quickly. There were a few places, as you of course knows, there were a few places where you could have basically the ancient Roman equivalent of a fast food. There were lots of places like that in Rome city. So you just go in there, maybe there are a couple of legionaries in there, a few people, and then you just grab something to eat, maybe a little soup or bread with whatever, and then eat that quickly standing and get back to work. That's something a lot of Romans did. The whole triclinium and laying down with the grapes, it's a little bit of an upper class thing, as is, for instance, the idea of Romans eating and then throwing up. Have you ever heard of that? It is mentioned in the sources, but only in a negative sense, so they frown upon it, and it's normally speaking about the ultra-rich. Those are the ones that do that. Not all of them do, so not all emperors do that. And those that do are frowned upon because it's not seen as a good thing. So whenever we imagine this idea of Romans eating, then throwing up so they can eat again, it's not something common. And it's something that even, I would say, even middle to regular upper class would frown upon, and only the ultra-rich would do, and really the most lascivious ones, if that's even a word.
Again, this only applies to the wealthy. Most people just sat at a table the way that we do today. Chumps. But for the wealthy, they had a triclinium. This was a dining room characterized by a setup of 3 lecti, or sofas, in a U-shape with a mensa, or a table, placed at the center. Sometimes it was one large U-shaped sofa with an accompanying U-shaped table, but it was the same idea. Each sofa held 3 people, making 9 the best number of guests.
I wouldn't like to eat like this. It's mostly because I wasn't brought up, of course, like this. Maybe if I was a Roman patrician. But for me, I understand it's supposed to be comfortable, I guess. But then again, I don't like the idea. I don't know about you. What's interesting, though, about the 2 Latin terms that he used, lecti for the sofa, mensa for the table. Not only you can still like lecti, we say letti to mean beds in Italian. That's a letto, letti, that's the word. Etymology is the same. We use a different one for sofa. We say, either we use the word sofa, but we pronounce it differently. We say sofa, or we say divano. I think in English there is a word like that. Divan, I don't know how you pronounce it, but I believe you do have a word like that. When it comes to mensa, I know that mesa, if you remove the N, is table in Spanish. So Spanish is more, in fact, traditional when it comes to this. But in Italian, if you say mensa, exactly written like that, with the N, it means a cafeteria in these days.
Some larger homes might have multiple setups of these sofas in 1 or more rooms, which would allow for larger gatherings, but still people were generally divided up into groups of 9. Again, Plutarch discusses this sofa setup and poses the question, why is there not enough room for the guests at the beginning of a meal while there seems to be plenty later on?
That's a wonderful question. He's absolutely right on the mark.
It is the position of the diners on the sofas. For they lie when they eat almost flat on their stomachs, so that they may reach the table with their right hand. But after one has eaten, he
fascists.
turns his depth, not his breadth, toward the board. So supposing that you have decided to keep your guest count to 9, it is all the more important who you decide to invite. And largely it depends on your own personality.
Of course.
Like, do you constantly need the affirmation of others? Guilty? Well, in that case, you want to invite someone like...
You got my information, I can tell you that much, Max. All right, so for the rest of the history, I'm not going to watch it now because I do want to encourage people to go watch him and give him the like, give him the view, leave a comment and give him engagement. He definitely deserves it for the history, but I do want to see the bird. So let's go.
Overs to pack up, I should at least try this duck prepared as you would a flamingo.
Yeah.
And here we are. Ancient Roman duck masquerading as an ancient Roman flamingo. Now the recipe says to pour the sauce all over the duck.
Do that.
But frankly, I think the duck is so pretty that I just put it into a little golden bowl for dipping. And dipping sauces, that was actually...
Of course you do, because you're American. You Google guys have to dip everything.
More common than pouring it over in ancient Rome.
So you
at parties. You would dip. So, got some duck, and I'm dipping lots of sauce here.
Sauce. Man, it was a little New Yorker. Sausage. Coffee.
That's really good.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, it looks good.
So the duck is perfect. I thought it would be overcooked. I was a little bit worried, but it's not. It's wonderfully delicious. The skin is very nice. I wouldn't call it crispy, but it's crisp-ish, halfway to crispy. But it's the sauce that's the star, honestly. It's sweet at first from all those dates, but then you get such an savoriness from all of those spices and the herbs, none of which really jump out. Even the asafoetida, even the mint, both of which can easily be overpowering.
They combine.
They're all together in this, and it's just unctuous. Like all of the drippings just kind of coats your mouth. It's very, very luxurious.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if we would get much. Like if you eat it, if you did two, you eat third slice, then maybe after that you'd be like, eh.
Really, really good. This might be my favorite Roman sauce that I've made. And I've made a lot of Roman sauces, but this one is really, really good. Plus I like duck. So honestly, you could make this with any bird.
That's great. Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. This is great. Cool stuff. Yeah, I loved it. It was a good video.